Let's talk about Hitler.
That'll make sense later.
I'm immaculately conceived.
I don't know what to do.
I swear I'm not stupid.
Take it or leave it. Sometimes you just want to leave it.
If I gotta borrow my mom's underwear, I'm borrowing her underwear.
You just, yeah.
Misa likes the Jar Jar Binks.
I'm not gonna edit it out.
Oh no.
I don't know. Like I think I'm just pretty great. Just staying on the
Sucks to
planet.
suck.
Why are you saying it with a question mark?
Clap, bitch.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Action.
And we're live. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jessica.
And this is Why Are You Yelling? Welcome back. We're not doing an F1 race review today.
I had it memorized in my head what you normally say. And I was like, welcome back to not another F1 race review.
Today, we're actually going to do a movie review, still related to F1. F1, the movie came out like 2 weeks ago-ish. We went and saw it opening weekend. We are finally able to sit down and record our review of it. We have lots of thoughts. And I hope that you will stick around until the end because we're going to tell you how to fix the movie. How it should have been done from the beginning in a way that would have been much better than the way it was done.
So spoiler alert, those are our beginning thoughts are, ooh, thumbs down. It gets 2 helmets. 2 out of 5 helmet. Actually, I don't know that. We'll sell how many helmets it gets at the end.
We'll give our ratings after we have thoroughly discussed because we saw the movie together. We briefly chit-chatted on the way out into the parking lot and have not really discussed it since.
No.
So we're gonna see where our hearts truly lie at the end of this and then give you our rating for it.
And I have not read 100 other people's reviews on it because you do get swayed a little bit if you're feeling a certain way. I'm like, no, these are just my thoughts. I mean, of course, I did see a few people that criticized it and I was like, oh, I don't care about that. That's not what bothered me. So, but these are our thoughts.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So we will start with a quick sort of overall vibe check. And just to mention real quick too, that this is going to be spoiler free up until a certain point, giving just our general overview and thoughts of it. And then we'll let you know when we get into the spoilers.
Yes. So these are like our spoiler free first impressions.
Yeah. So overall vibe check. Did the movie deliver on what it promised to be?
What did it promise?
You know, I think that initially I heard from the drivers who got an early copy of the movie and saw an early screening of it.
Yeah.
A lot of the drivers said the racing looked good.
Yeah.
The soundtrack was good. And it was very a Hollywood version of Formula One and not to expect it to be too technically accurate.
Yeah. Which all of that, okay.
I didn't really hear anybody talk about drivers or anybody else talk about the plot line of the movie leading up to its release. A lot of the promos and coverage of it seemed to be centered more around the way they filmed it and how good it looked and all the stuff they did to make you really, especially Brad Pitt talking about, you really can get a sense of the speed of the cars.
Yeah.
So, but I don't recall in any of the promotional stuff and the interviews before the movie came out, them talking about the plot line too much.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely guilty. I did not watch a lot of interviews with the cast and crew to understand. I didn't follow this like press tour basically, but what I did hear, that was pretty much it. And so, did it deliver? It delivered something.
It delivered 2.5 hours of something.
It's not fair because it's like there's 2 ways to look at it. Did it deliver on cinematography? Did it deliver on the score? Did it deliver on it being like filmed in a way that you've never filmed Formula One cars before? Yes, it delivered. That 100% filmmaking wise, 100% delivered.
They will, I think, win awards for the cinematography.
Yeah.
I think they will win awards for, I don't know how many different awards you can get for the way that something is filmed or shot. But if they don't win an award at some point for that, like I would be very surprised.
Yeah, because I mean, the way it was filmed was awesome. The plot, you know.
We'll get very into later.
So standout elements, like we kind of already talked about just now, like I think that the score was great. I think that the way it was filmed was really cool. I really enjoyed that.
I wish we had a little more.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, that was kind of all I kept hearing was how nothing's been filmed like this before. And then I feel like I didn't get to see that much of it, which part of me understands production-wise. Like, you only are probably going to have so many opportunities to do that. But I also kind of think you have to figure that out when you decide you're going to film something like this and then talk about how you're filming something like this. And it's not that large of a part of the movie.
Mhm.
Like, it, to me, they should have been in the car more. Not even just because, oh, I want to see the racing. It's not what I'm saying. It's just the fact that that's kind of what they said they were going to deliver. And it really wasn't that much of the movie.
Mhm.
So,
There were some comparisons before the movie came out, or even from early reviews of it, people comparing it to Top Gun Maverick.
yeah, you had said something like
And where and it's a very loose comparison, where you don't have to be, to enjoy Top Gun Maverick, you didn't have to be a plane enthusiast. You don't have to know everything there is about piloting a plane or
Yeah.
a jet or anything like that. You can go into that movie and just be mind blown about all the cool action sequences with the plane, but also a great storyline, an emotional storyline throughout the whole thing. There's a real payoff. The plot matters and makes sense. That it's an action movie, but the plot is the driving for, like, the plane stuff is cool, but that's not what makes the movie great.
Yeah.
The way that it was shot and filmed and the score all contribute to the buildup of emotions, but it's really the plot line throughout that whole thing that makes you feel, that makes you want to see it again. I've seen Top Gun Maverick. I saw it in theaters, loved it, and was like, fuck yeah, America. And I have seen it 2 or 3 times since then.
Another reason, like, Top Gun Maverick's being mentioned because it's the same director. So that's the other thing. So it's not like we've seen this director do amazing stuff. So that's the reason we're mentioning Top Gun.
Yes. So you get that, and then people say, okay, well, with the F1 movie, F1 the movie, so you get this comparison to F1 the movie, and they say, okay, well, you should be able to then go into this movie not necessarily being a fan of Formula One or being a motorsport enthusiast, because generally, if you kind of follow one motorsport, you can loosely follow the others. There's certain things that are very technical that make the difference, but for the most part, you can kind of get the gist of it. So that being said, you should be able to go into the F1 movie, whether you enjoy motorsport or not, and still understand what's going on and still be able to follow enough of the technical race stuff that it shouldn't matter, right? So like when you have these scenes and shots of the cars and the race weekends and they're talking strategy and all this stuff, there should be enough going on with the main plot of the movie, the thorough line and the emotional beats, that should be what makes the movie great and what makes you want to keep coming back to watch it again and again. Like with Top Gun Maverick, it's the relationship between Maverick and, I think his name is Rooster. It's the son of Goose from the first movie. Like that relationship and that dynamic is what makes Top Gun Maverick so good, in my opinion. And then, so it's a thorough line of like the plot and the characters. Should be the same for this F1 movie. It should be that the plot and the characters and the relationships between them, and really the relationship between Sonny, who's our main character, and
Joshua Pierce
and Sonny Hayes, that should be the way that this movie is set up. That should be the defining relationship with all the emotional beats, and that draws you back to this movie again and again. And I don't think it successfully does that. This is not what makes this movie good in any aspect. It's the action sequences, it's the stuff with the car, it's the score, it's the cinematography. And while that is all great, if you don't have a strong supporting plot line and a plot line that spans the entire movie, and you don't have all these little bits here and there that kind of just don't really add much, like that, it's just a weak plot, I'm not going to see this movie again. I don't know that I need to, and if I needed to get my fix of like, oh, I just really want to look at the cinematography or those couple of scenes that really were effective in the car, I can just go watch the scenes on YouTube. I don't need to go rewatch this whole movie start to finish, which I think is a real shame.
Yeah. So that pretty much leads us to who's the movie for and would we recommend it? So I don't know who this movie's for. I couldn't say that it's for the general audience. I couldn't say it's for it's definitely not for an F1 fan. But I couldn't really say it's for. I couldn't say that it's marketed towards trying to get people to watch F1 because I don't see you watching this movie and then being interested in F1.
No.
So I couldn't tell you who the movie's for. And I don't know that they really knew who the movie was for either. I think they had an amazing idea. It reminds me of Barbie, where there was this great concept that they had, at least that they thought they had, and they were very excited about. And maybe it's a situation of being in this echo chamber of creating something super exciting, and everybody is going off the vibe of what you think you're making. And that's what led to this. And so would I recommend it? No. I wouldn't say don't go see it. I'm just not going to say it's worth going to. You could stream it. And now that being said, if you did, I guess I would recommend it one time just to see the action sequences in theater, because I do think a theater experience is different than at your house. But if I were to recommend it, it's strictly for the car scenes and this feeling the score and feeling, because there are just certain things that like a theater can encapsulate that your house can't. But that would be it. It wouldn't be because I'm like, the movie was so good, the plot was so good. It's not like Rush by any means. So, or like Ford versus Ferrari or anything like that. So that would be the only reason I would recommend it if I were to recommend it.
Yeah, I would definitely say at a 2.5 hour runtime, definitely time your bathroom breaks around the action sequences. Like there are spans of time where they're not in the car. Like there's hospital scenes and stuff, which I don't think is a major spoiler at all because it's a race movie. Duh, there's going to be people getting injured. The hospital scenes, go to the bathroom. Time your bathroom breaks then, because when you would think that those would be emotional moments, tense moments you really want to, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You can go. Just to answer the question on my side, I agree with you. Go to the theater to see it if you enjoy cinematography, action sequences, score, if that kind of stuff matters to you and that's what you're interested in, by all means, it's worth the, $15, $20 ticket to go see it. If you can see it like an IMAX or like we have a GTX theater, which is just like bigger screen, surround sound, the whole deal. If you can go see it that way, I highly recommend. It's worth it just for those parts alone. But if you don't really care about that stuff and you just kind of are a general movie enthusiast, just wait for it to come out on streaming. Yeah. And so that's kind of my recommendation is like,
So we can move on to our section, which is called F1 Authenticity Check. Did it feel like real F1? No. But I don't think it was supposed to. I'm not mad that it didn't. That's not something that bothers me. It's a movie. That's just a silly criticism. I have seen some people get upset that it didn't. And I'm like, well, then go watch F1. So that's not something that bothers me. Personally, no, I don't think it felt anything like actually following F1 besides maybe seeing the drivers. Besides that was still kind of fleeting. So I would say like not really.
I think overall, most of the racing sequences or trackside sequences or bits of the film that we saw, it was more focused toward the race day itself.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked to have seen more of the race weekend as a whole.
Yeah.
So for people who don't, if the goal was to get more people interested in F1 and to maybe push people to start watching the races and follow the sport, I think you need to show a little bit more of the sport in terms of, the race weekend as a whole. There's more to the strategy and the way that they decide how to do things during the race than just the race day itself. There's a lot that goes into practice and qualifying that matters and plays a part in the race day, especially when it comes to tire choice, especially when it comes to the setup of the car. I feel like if we had been able to see some of that come into play in the movie, that would have been really cool. And I think could have gotten some people a little more, if that was your goal, is to get people into the sport with the movie, that could have been a cool way to do it, because that stuff is interesting for people who like sports with strategy and where it's not just, driving around in circles, which is a little bit of what this movie sort of portrays F1 as, is you just drive in circles around a track a bunch and then eventually somebody wins and there's a bunch of crashes. Like that's kind of what it portrays F1 to be. And I think that for people who want who like their sports to have a little more strategy, a little more thought, it's a little more chess moves than checkers kind of vibe. It could have been cool to see more of the practice in the qualifying. And I did like the stuff. We got to see some of they were like podium celebration. We got to see a little bit of that in the movie. We got to see them standing for the national anthem that they play in each country before the race. That was kind of cool to see. You got to see, I think, the grid walk. We got to see a little bit of that, of like, if I remember right, of people on the grid.
So we saw some of that, but it also never, if you weren't aware that existed, you weren't really aware why they were even doing that. So that was where it felt like there were multiple points in the movie that, like, truthfully, if you aren't familiar with F1, you would have not really understood what they were doing anyway. And I'm like, who the fuck is this for? Like, I only understand what's happening loosely in the movie because of, like, us following F1 and understanding the sport. So I'm like, if none of that was explained to the audience for them to even understand, like, why that was even happening.
Yeah, I would have liked, like I said, I would have liked to have seen, even if it's just one race weekend as a whole, as opposed to, jumping from, race to race to race to race throughout the movie. It would have been cooler to just slow down, show me one full race weekend, and then maybe we can go and have a sequence of races at a couple of different tracks, because then you have an idea of what they're doing and why.
Yes.
At each track.
Yeah.
Moving into, how were the racing sequences? Were they realistic? There's your answer, folks.
Well, technically, everything they showed happened at some point in time in F1. So, yes and no. It's like, were there sequences that did happen and were based off real things that happened in real life? Yes. So it's like yes and no. But was it realistic for all of it to happen all the time? Absolutely not. No. But I'm not mad that it's not realistic. It's a movie.
I don't know how detailed we want to get into the inaccuracies of of the way things would have happened, and some of this falls into like spoiler territory.
Yeah. That's why I was like, I gotta pull back.
Let's just put it this way. There were certain things that occurred, like in terms of the technical aspects of like, if this were to actually happen during a race, the effects of it in the movie are not accurate to like the way that the rules are written for Formula One. So for instance, if there was something that happened during qualifying in a very specific way, then there are ramifications for that in the actual race itself. And that was not realistic in the way that it was portrayed in the movie, which I'm intentionally keeping it vague. But that's not how the rules are written. That's not what would have happened. Now, there is like a race sequence where they're employing a specific type of strategy, if you want to even call it that, where we're like, and this gets a little spoilery, I'll keep it vague, where we're crashing into multiple cars, lap after lap, like basically trying to create scenarios to your advantage, but like intentionally causing collisions with other drivers and causing incidents. In modern Formula One, there is no way a driver would be able to get away with that, especially with the way the radio communication was happening. It was obvious to their team what was happening. And keep in mind that for those who don't know, like everyone can hear the radio communications. So like the stewards, so the people that are presiding over the race, they can hear that. And if it's obvious to your team what's happening, it is going to be obvious to the other teams on the grid what you're doing too. They will file a complaint. They will say, no, they can't do this. This is dangerous. It's against the rules. So that was not realistic at all. And I'm sure that when we got a lot of the drivers talking about the movie after they had seen it, and they were saying it's very Hollywood, that I feel like that that aspect, that plot line of the movie in particular is what they were referring to, I think, when they're like, that it's not for like people who are sticklers for F1 and the rules and stuff.
No. So realistic or glamorized? I would say definitely glamorized.
Yes. More glamorized than realistic.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's a movie.
That's not something I'm upset about. That's just like,
it just is what it is.
It's just moving forward, moving on.
Spoilers.
If you haven't seen the movie, you don't want spoilers, and you just want to know the vibe, end it here. If you're just here because you want to hear us talk about it, because you want to know if your opinion matches ours, continue. Yeah. So
we'll get into there's a lot of things we want to discuss in terms of what worked, what didn't work, in terms of the plot, the character development or lack thereof, things that we've seen other people have reactions to online and our own thoughts about those particular things. And then also, after we get through all of that, we do want to go into how we would make this movie better and what we would have changed and things that we think could have really worked. So getting into the sort of plot recap and discussion of sort of the characters.
The briefest way to put the plot, just so we don't like try to nail down every single thing, is Sonny Hayes is a former Formula One driver who is still racing in other series. His Formula One career ended 20, 30 years before the movie starts due to a crash. He is approached by an ex-teammate of his who now owns a Formula One team and is like, I need a driver. My team's straight ass. Will you please come help me? I have a rookie. He's super awesome, but I need someone with experience to come help me. Sonny comes, pretty much just sets the world on fire when he comes, disturbs everybody in every way you could probably imagine that, you know, a rugged sort of I do what I want sort of character does, and I'm smarter than everybody. That's who Sonny is. And he helps improve the team, but it causes a lot of tension and issues within the team. But he does improve the team, and it leads to the team winning a race at the end of the movie. And there's a lot of drama in between, but I would say that's the loosest of terms of what happens.
And the reason that that is the loosest and the most generalized plot description or recap or summary of this movie is because there is so much going on. There are so many different smaller plot lines and beats throughout this movie that ultimately go nowhere. They don't really serve a purpose. They're kind of just there. And we're at a 2.5 hour runtime. Easily could have been a 2-hour movie, easily, and a much tighter script. There's a lot of things that to me just didn't work. Again, no purpose.
Yeah, it felt like a lot of just loose ends. It felt like everybody had like a piece, like all these separate pieces of string that they were supposed to tie together, and they did it, and they just threw it in a pile and thought they would connect themselves. And that's just not what happened.
So most of the time with movies, you want your central, like, give me 1 to 2 sentences of what the theme of the movie is. What is the audience supposed to take away from this movie? What is the central, like, just what are we supposed to feel? What is the journey we go on? What do we learn? I couldn't tell you what this movie is about. I have no idea. So like the character Sonny Hayes, he gets this recurring question throughout the movie. You know, they say, oh, we'll pay you a lot of money to come back into the sport. We'll pay you, or sometimes it's, oh, we can't pay you that much money to do this because we're a different racing series and smaller, whatever. And he says multiple times, it's not about the money. And then he gets the question, well, what is it about? And then he never answers the question. He always just kind of like smiles, shakes his head, and that's it. And it's like, no, answer the question. What is it about? What? And then that applies to this movie as a whole. What is it about? Couldn't tell you.
At one point, there is a moment where he discusses basically what he's chasing when he's racing. Like this, he's chasing this certain feeling that he used to have while racing. That's why he still races. But even then, it's very like, there's no emotion behind it. Like the problem here is there's absolutely no emotional, like I'm not invested emotionally whatsoever in this movie. I don't care about anybody in this movie or their story or anything because there was nothing for me to care about. And it's not even like, I love me a rugged character. One of my favorite movies is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, which Brad Pitt is in. It is sort of similar to Sonny Hayes, where he's like a rugged sort of guy. Great character, because he's written well, you get invested, everything like that, right? So it's like, I'm not against a rugged character who's kind of hard to love, but that wasn't even the problem. There was just it's like pretty much impossible to get emotionally invested in the movie, because there's nothing to invest in. There's no plotline to be invested in. Like the most emotional scene between two characters is when they're playing poker. And that's the most that our characters connect. And that's it. And that was probably the most interesting part.
What didn't work for me We'll start there. So what didn't work for me was we had Joshua Pierce. So he's the rookie driver on the team. What didn't work for me was his manager, who none of his manager stuff I didn't care about. Like, it didn't really matter. Didn't really contribute much, had way too much screen time.
Yeah, it had way too much screen time to not really
Pay off.
to pay off for the audience to truly understand how much of that social media and your presence and all that, because it does matter.
Actually, that idea is really good, and it's different because we're in such a different era of racing that's with social media and with the brand partnerships and the way that the drivers have to interact and the type of content they create. It's long gone are the days of them only wearing a logo on a suit. There's so much more that goes into these brand partnerships and their presence online, their interactions with fans, the growth of the sport as a whole. All of that is actually really interesting, and the toll that it takes and the added pressure that it puts on drivers on top of just being good at their sport and trying to achieve what they want to achieve in the sport. It's a lot of added pressure. They allude to that. They sort of imply it, but it wasn't, and it could have been a very interesting aspect to this character and could have added a lot to him and the pressure that he's under. But the way that it was addressed, and they tried to do it with the manager saying, like, you got to be thinking about your race seat next year and you got to drive for you. And what about all these brand deals? And it just didn't really do much for me.
No, and there's a scene where Sonny and Joshua get into an altercation with each other, and it's pretty much in front of a bunch of the media. And Sonny doesn't care, and then Joshua's like, oh shit, and he's like smiling, and this is like after a shit race, right? Like, they had a shit race, neither car finished because they wrecked each other, and so they're arguing about it, but they're arguing in front of the media because they kind of come to that hallway that leads out of their paddock or whatever. And so Joshua turns to the media and is smiling because he sort of he understands and has grasped the concept that how people perceive me matters. And it was such a lost concept that it would have been even interesting for Formula One fans, like current fans, to understand the stress that these drivers are under outside of racing because of external factors. And it could have really been a nice way to explore that. And it completely failed. None of it mattered because it wasn't explored. Really, and it wasn't explained to the audience about why that matters. And so it was just it just took up screen time for no reason because it didn't pay off.
Exactly. Again, could have been a very interesting and cool part of that character, and could have really, I think, added to, it's a motivation. That's like a motivating factor for that character. Why does he make the choices that he makes? Why does he have all this tension with Sonny Hayes? Why is he, driving the way that he does and doing the things that he does? And it's because he's concerned about his future, and he's concerned about being able to continue in the sport that he loves and has a lot of promise and could have a great future in. But the social media and the just media as a whole and your perception, all of that matters and plays a factor into if you are going to get a seat next year and what team you could possibly drive for. It's not only about your results on the track. And that is a great, strong, motivating factor and could have been great for this character. And like you said, it just goes nowhere and doesn't pay off. And that was a solid 5 minutes of screen time we could have trimmed from this movie, and with the manager character too, because it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, there was nothing that paid off there whatsoever.
And even if they wanted to make the manager character more involved, then have Joshua Pierce's character be talking with other teams, right? Contract negotiations and seeing about what seats are available, because that all is an integral part of the sport too, all the behind the scenes stuff. That could have been interesting and again added another layer to this character and some of his motivation, and they just didn't do anything with that either. So I'm like, get rid of his character completely.
I also did not like how Sonny basically goes, none of that matters. It's just about the racing, dude. It's just about the racing. And as much as we would love for it to be that, it's not. And it should be. I mean, truth be told, that's why I'm like, it would have been such a great way for Formula One fans who don't think about these external factors for the drivers to really explore it so people can have a little more empathy, understanding like, God, look at everything that they're under. It's not just did I perform well, it's did I make this brand happy? Does this brand like me? I need to bring sponsorships into the team. Like there's so much that goes into it that could have been explored and it wasn't. But it was mentioned. The point is, like, if you were gonna mention it, then explore it. If you knew you weren't going to, don't bring it up.
Yeah.
And
it would have been, again, and they play into it a little bit, but not enough, that is that's a point of contention between the two characters. That is a point of like division in the way that they view and approach the sport and what they're doing, in that you've got Joshua Pierce's character who's again, he's a rookie. He approaches driving in the sport and being an F1 driver differently than Sonny Hayes, who was reluctantly dragged back into it and views it solely as like almost like a purist, a racing purist mentality, and he says, none of that matters. It's only the racing that matters, when like that's not true.
Exactly. And then in a way, the movie sort of lends itself to agree with Sonny, but it does.
But it's
false.
not.
Yeah, it's not like a real represent. And I understand it's a movie, but it's just, I don't know. So that didn't pay off at all.
Didn't pay off. Could have been a great point of contention between the characters. Could have been a great motivating factor for Joshua Pierce's character, but ultimately went nowhere. Other characters that we think maybe could have been trimmed or cut or not necessarily needed as much screen time. What didn't work for me was toward the beginning of the movie when Sonny Hayes first shows up trackside to do the test run with the car to see if he's even, they're saying it's like a trial run to see if he'll even consider taking the seat. He is introduced to like 4 or 5 different characters at the same time. Do you remember this moment?
Yes, because it was way too, because I think I had leaned over and I was like, why are they still talking to each other? There was like 4 or 5 people in a circle talking, circle jerking off, joking basically, because pretty much Sonny's like, I'm here, you really want me? And they're joking like, well, you're like the 7th or 8th person we've actually called, and they won't drop the fucking bit. And there's 5 people there that he's been introduced to, and they're still talking about this bit. And I'm like, this is not a comedy. You can have funny moments, but it wasn't even that funny. But they would not drop it. And it went on far too long, and all those people were pretty much forgettable.
Exactly. So the only people in that scene the only person he needed to really be introduced to in that moment, and we didn't need to do it all in a big circle. We could have done some one-on-one type stuff, but it was the technical engineer, it was the female character. I don't even remember her name.
Kate McKenna.
So he needs to be introduced to Kate, because she's an important character, at least to his storyline. He can be introduced to her at that moment, but then we also had the head of the pit crew guy who could have been cut from the movie. Like, I don't know that he served a purpose. We had the team principal who used to be apparently a rear jack guy. They specifically mentioned that at the beginning of the movie, that he used to be part of a pit crew, started off part of the pit crew, was the rear jack guy. And then we get toward the end of the movie and like there's a red flag on the last race. So they all get to make any changes or adjustments to the car while they don't get to go into the garage. They're like lined up in the pit lane. And so at one point, it's like basically an all hands on deck. We got to make the repairs to the car in the little bit of time we have left. And then because it's all hands on deck, the team principal, because he used to be a rear jack guy, he's like, give me that, and takes the rear jack from the actual rear jack guy and like lifts the car. And I'm like, it's an okay callback moment, but it didn't need to happen.
Which I wasn't necessarily mad at that, just because you're dealing with this, like, if the plot would have been worth it. Because I'm like, that sequence could have happened in a rewritten movie, and it still could have been, because the reason he did is because they couldn't get the car dragged, and he goes, oh, I'll do it myself, basically.
But in what world is the team principal even off the pit wall in that scenario?
Well, no, because the cars were all like lined up or whatever, I guess.
I know,
right?
but like they're not actually leaving their seats. Like, he's the team principal. He's not the head. He doesn't.
No,
again, I know that it's a movie and it's not super accurate, but like that whole moment, like, again, it was fine, I guess, but it could have been trimmed. That's just a little extra fat that I don't know had the payoff, that when you have so many other problems with this movie and things that could have been, why was that included?
Yeah, it's I mean, he didn't have a big enough role for me that emotionally to pay off and go, damn, like, there we go. You know, like, that was like in Cars. So basically in Cars, Doc comes to the racetrack. Everybody knows who he is. And he's pretty much the race engineer for Lightning McQueen. That pays off because you understand his past, what it means for him to even step back into a racetrack. Like, that's something that you're like, damn, like, look at him go. But that's because he's a huge part of that plot. This guy was like in the movie off and on, like, didn't really have a plot. Like, he was just there. He was a supporting character. So it was like, for him to jump down and do that, it was this, it would have been better if he would have been a bigger character. So it was more like my issue. Like if I have an issue with it, it's more just because it doesn't pay off. So it's just like a needless moment.
Another sort of plot line and character that didn't really pay off for me was Joshua Pierce's mother. I don't really know why she was there. So the moments that we really see her in which she has a presence on screen and contributes anything is there's a moment where when Sonny Hayes, it's after his like, sort of like track audition, and then we get a scene with Joshua Pierce and his mom like in his apartment. His mom's like cooking for him or whatever. I'm pretty sure that they only had that for the product placement of the blender, because that is what Ninja Shark or whatever is one of the sponsors for the car. So there's a small moment. They have a small interaction there. That's fine, whatever. I think it could have done more to serve as like her pulling information from him, so we get to see the inner thoughts of the character and hear him verbalize that kind of stuff. I think it could have been a bigger moment there. And then we get the scene when he's in the hospital. So this is after Joshua Pierce's car. He's at his wreck. His car like flipped a million times, was on fire. He's got burns on his hands. He's in the hospital. So Sonny Hayes goes to the hospital to visit his teammate. And then his mother comes out of the room and like his mother...
Yeah, she comes out of the room and she's like,
basically is like, this is your fault. And what do you think you're doing? This is my baby and this is his life. And like is piling on all this guilt. Like, this is your fault. And Sonny Hayes is like, it's a sobering moment. And I did like that moment. And then you get like the Joshua Pierce's character is awake and he hears what's going on in the hallway, and he hears his mother blame Sonny for what happened. And there is a little, it's not even really payoff. Like it isn't. Later in the movie, Joshua tells his mother, like, that accident was my fault. He wanted me to brake later. I wasn't patient enough. I didn't do actually what he told me to do. And I caused...
You would have heard on the radio messages out of public.
Yeah. And he says, it's my fault. Don't blame him. And I get making Sonny feel bad in the hospital, and he feels some sort of guilt. But
did he though? Because I kind of felt like he just didn't argue with her to not argue with her.
Yeah,
because he didn't.
Nothing happened, and that's why I say it goes nowhere. Because if he feels truly guilty in that moment, you would think that something in his mind would change about, I can't actually take that much risk, or I shouldn't be so willy-nilly with people's lives. But
technically, he didn't listen to what Sonny said. So it's like, in a way, Sonny
doesn't have to feel guilty because it actually isn't his fault. And it's like, well, the mother blames him, but he knows it's not his fault. Joshua Pierce knows it's not his fault. So why is the mother trying to lay on the blame thicker? What was the point of that scene?
Yeah, it's like, I feel like the point of it was to try to make Joshua feel something, because Josh is the one that messed up. He's the one that didn't listen. But it never really comes across like that. And there's really no emotional growth. Mm-mm. Like, we don't actually see growth from either character. And in that sense, it's very boring. So that just didn't make any sense to me, where I'm like, where's the growth here?
If we're going to have anyone feeling guilty or assigning blame, it should have been Josh's character who felt angry at the accident. If he then expressed that anger to his mother, who then expresses that anger in the hallway to Sonny, she's acting as a proxy for her son in that moment, right? Yeah. So that makes more sense. But the mother is just jumping to these conclusions and blaming Sonny when Josh kind of knows that it's his fault, but doesn't want to verbalize that he did the wrong thing. It could be more effective if he actually believed and was blinded by anger and wanted to blame somebody, but couldn't blame himself. But like, he knows that it's his fault and he just doesn't want to say it. But if he actually believed and was blinded by the anger and wanted to play the victim, that could have been a character defining moment. And then you get the character growth toward the end of the movie where because then he does realize that he does need to practice more. He gets in the simulator, he plays that same moment in the race over and over and over, and he runs it so many times, eventually realizing that Sonny was right and he should have listened to him and it was his own fault.
Because he kept trying to do it the way he was going, that he attempted to do it. He was trying to pass Max Verstappen, which he was never going to do. But, he tries that moment over and over and over again, and he can never do it. But the one time he does it, how Sonny told him he should have done it, it works. And so
that could have been like a light bulb aha moment. And again, character growth like that. But just to have the mother just jump to these conclusions, be angry, have the yelling moment in the hospital, like it doesn't go anywhere. There's no character development from either of them from that moment. And it's like you had something there that could have been more, but like there's so many other things going on that never gets developed or utilized effectively. And it's so frustrating.
It's very frustrating. It's just, I've already established and said that I don't, it's fine that it's not exactly the same as F1, right? But the mother at this point is clearly like understands that a lot of what Joshua was doing was based on the instruction from Sonny, which means she understood the radio messages. So how did she not see what Sonny said versus what Joshua did? So to me, it's a huge contradiction of like, why is she so angry at Sonny? Because the only way for her to even understand that Joshua was operating under what the instruction from Sonny is to understand those radio messages, because that's the only way that he was hearing that.
And again, they don't say how this happens or how she knows this in the movie. Yeah. The only other way would be if she didn't hear the radio messages and her son tells her, I was doing what Sonny said and this is what happened.
But he was supposedly knocked out till he woke up.
Yeah.
And heard her. So I'm like, I don't really understand that.
Like, how does she know or come to this conclusion? The
only logical way would have been the radio in my head. Like, I'm like, the only logical way that you heard this was from the radio messages, but then you also would have heard what Sonny said to do, and that's not what he did. So who are you? That doesn't, it's not.
That's the reason we have to assume that that's the way that she found that information out, is because we're not told any other way. We have no idea if she's spoken to any other character that would have told her, hey, this is what happened. But anybody who would have known that Sonny is the one that told Josh to do that in the race would have been able to explain to her, Sonny said do it this way, Josh did it this way, and that's what caused the accident.
So I'm like, none of it really makes sense.
Yeah, so it's not like someone told her what happened, because any character that could have told her would have explained it to her.
Exactly.
So the only way we can assume she found it out is if she overheard the radio messages. But again,
she still would have heard.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me. So like that whole thing, like what? So another thing, I just don't understand, like, so both of their dads are mentioned at one point and how they both lost their father at they were both like 13 years old when it happened. That doesn't really pay off either. I'm not emotionally invested in either of their backstory. At one point, Josh was like, I did everything to be here. I did this. I don't know that. I know nothing about you. There's nothing for me to emotionally invest in to understand what you did or didn't give up or what your family has given up to get you to this point.
There's been no legwork done. It's like a show versus tell sort of thing. The character is telling me I've sacrificed a lot and done a lot, and you don't know what I've done to be here. I don't know either as the audience. I don't know what you've sacrificed or done, because no one has shown or told. There's no backstory, which you could have done through the mother, through the manager, because it seems like the way the manager relationship is portrayed, that they're friends.
They seem like family almost.
Yeah, they seem like the long term, like, you brought your boy up with you, and you know that he has your back because you've been, each other so well.
100%, yeah.
So it gives that sort of vibe. So I mean, the manager, every time he's talking about, you got to do it for the brand and all about the money and the partying and the seemingly superficial stuff, he could have had lines that actually mattered, because you can say, the brands matter and you got to be thinking about these sorts of things, but you can also slip in a line of like, you've done so much. You remember XYZ things that you've done, or some sort of anecdote from their past or childhood.
Flashback.
Give me something that tells me me as the audience, why I should care about you as a character.
Exactly. And the same thing with Sonny. Like, we hear about the dad. Sonny talks about how his dad had a gambling problem, which is, the whole card thing. And I guess probably is what also led to Sonny's bad behavior later in life. Because basically, Sonny Hayes got into his car accident in Formula One, horrible accident, lives, and then blows all his money.
and develops and gets married a couple times and divorced a couple times and develops a gambling problem.
Yeah, loses everything. Then he just goes back to racing or whatever.
Yeah,
It's a different series.
Yeah, and in smaller series, so he does like Le Mans or something like, or no, he does
He does endurance racing. So it's like he does the Daytona 24-hour Rolex. He does, and we're led to believe he does other things like that as well.
It's implied that he kind of jumps from series to series until he wins it, and then he's like, okay, like one and done sort of thing.
He's like a little race slut.
Yeah.
So, or a series slut.
Mhm.
He's an SS. Ooh, no. SS officer. He's a series slut. There's just nothing for me to be invested in on either side. Like even the father side, like there's nothing there. There's nothing there for me to understand why Sonny operates the way that he does because of how he was raised. And the only reason I'm mentioning that is because they mention it. So it's like, if it wasn't going to be explored, why do we bring it up at all?
And again, it could have been a great plot point because we have the tension, the divisiveness between the two characters of the way that they view racing and F1 and this career, right? That we mentioned before could have been a really great point of contention between the characters where they butt heads. And then you could have this moment where, they both are like, oh, which they do have a single moment where they're both like, oh, our dads both died when we were 13 years old, which is a very formative age for a boy to lose their father figure. They're coming, going through puberty, going into manhood and all this stuff, right? So like, what more, like that could be a moment to bring them together, because if we then go into how were our dads similar, or how were we raised similarly, or did our dads have a philosophy about racing that they gave then to pass down to us that's the same? Or how did losing our fathers at 13 years old affect us similarly? Like that could have been a moment to bring the characters together where you find a common thread, because then from that sort of point, the characters try to start to work together more and come together more and develop more of a relationship and a bond. But it's very flimsy. There's no real reason why. And it could have been such a good bringing them together moment where they're like, oh, and it's a little bit of a movie cliche, but it could have been like, oh, we're more similar than we are different.
It could have been interesting because in Formula One, a lot of these guys have their dads. Like literally almost every driver has their dad, except like Charles Leclerc, which is actually like a really interesting part of Charles's story in real life. And so I think that it was just, it felt like a lazy way to tell me as an audience member, I should be emotionally invested in these people because they've experienced loss and grief, even though I haven't seen them experience loss or grief. You're just telling me that they have had it happen in their lives, and now I'm suddenly supposed to care about that despite not showing me, or let me grieve it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how you are supposed to write things. You're supposed to make the audience care, not because I'm saying, make me care about it. I'm saying it where it's like, let me grieve their relationship with their dad with them. My dad's dead. I'm somebody who could really relate to these characters. I'm somebody who could feel that loss with them based on me not having my dad anymore. And it was just empty. And it's just like, it's lazy storytelling devices that you're not executing. Like it was wasted.
Yeah. And so there's this moment. So like the character, so Sonny has this like deck of cards that he almost always has with him. And that's a major sort of thing they keep at least consistent throughout the movie, is he either has this deck of cards on his pocket, on his persons. He is shuffling them, flipping them around or whatever,
like,
and
throw them in a hat.
Yeah, and that could be like for dexterity and reaction times, and it could be something like to do with that. But then he also keeps like one specific card from the deck.
It's random. He never checks it. So he just pulls it and then he does
a card and then puts it in his pocket. Yeah. Okay. Because I was so confused by this because it doesn't pay off. Again, we have this thing where you're setting up this thing that's supposed to have some sort of payoff and it doesn't ever get explained. So like I assume, again, he has this deck and it's a symbol of like his past behavior and problems with gambling. It's also a symbol of his father. So like I get that as a symbol. And then when the characters have the moment in Las Vegas where Kate, the technical director, brings the two drivers together and they play a couple rounds of poker, like the deck is supposed to symbolize something there about the characters connecting, or it doesn't quite fully form there. It could.
It could have.
It could. There's a tendril there that if they had done a little more development early in the movie, that symbol could really have paid off in a big way and could have been a good throw line. Like, I love a symbol. I love a symbol in a movie. I love symbolism. I want to read all the layers into it, and it just falls apart.
So before we started filming, this was something we had talked about that we wanted to explore. And I'm like, I don't really know what the reason he had the cards. I don't remember that really being discussed about like the why. I think Joshua does ask at some point, and I don't necessarily remember that Sonny gives a meaningful explanation as to why. But the director has pretty much said it's a superstition thing, and that it is a nod back to the father's gambling. It's a nod back to Sonny's gambling, but it's like a superstition thing. And there is a moment where he's in the car, he puts his hand in his pocket, because he'll put a single card in his pocket and he'll go before the race. And so it's
like a good luck sort of thing.
It's like and it's like a comfort thing, is he'll like put his hand in there
and feel the card.
And then he didn't. It was a big deal. But it's like, none of that, I don't care. And the reason I don't care is because I'm not showed why I should. So if it's that emotionally, most superstitions come from like influence. So if he's superstitious for a reason, or if he keeps a part of his dad with him for a reason, then I should have met the dad in a flashback. There should be a flashback scene with this father and these cards. So young Sonny associates that with his dad, or with or like he's being told a superstition. Like there's a reason Sonny feels this way, and it's never really explored as to why. And it easily could have been fixed by removing the manager scene for 5 minutes and giving me a 5-minute flashback that makes me go, fuck, like, look at this. Like, it's really not hard to make the audience care. You just have to view it as an audience member and go, how do you get emotionally invested in movies or a story? And it didn't pay off. Like, it was like, whatever.
Yeah. The moment in the movie where he goes to feel for the card that in his pocket and doesn't find it, he has a moment of like panic and gets anxious and stressed out. And that was portrayed, I think.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel it with him because I didn't know why it mattered.
Exactly.
It wasn't ever explained, or there's no emotional connection. I just don't feel it with it. And again, they show it well. Brad Pitt emotes well.
Yeah, he's a great, amazing actor. Yeah, so it's like, it's not his fault.
No, it's just that it was never explained to me or shown to me why it matters. And I just don't care. I'm like, okay, well, he's panicking, and that then is going to affect his performance and ability in the race. I get that. But like, why is he panicking? What's going through his head? How is that then going to affect everything else? No. It was just, again, it's a missed opportunity that they laid the tracks for and just never fully realized.
No. And the other thing is, the only reason I can say it's a superstition thing, it's linked to this, that, and the third, is because I had to Google it and saw what the director said about it. And I'm like, it happened so often in the movie. It's like a pre-race ritual of his that you should not have to tell me why. It's not an Easter egg. Easter eggs, yeah, I love an Easter egg, and I love figuring out later on why something happened, or like a small little thing happened, or why a person, did a certain thing. But like, those are like small things. An Easter egg is a small thing. This was not an Easter egg. This was like a character trait. And it just was pointless. And I'm supposed to care, but I don't. And it's because you don't tell me why I should.
So something else that just I didn't love or didn't work for me was the combat.
Oh my
chanting. God. So cheesy. So they say, plan C is for chaos, and they have plan A, plan B, plan C for strategy during the race. And they say plan C is for chaos. And I'm like, okay, whatever, that's fine. Then at some point, plan C or what is it? They're talking about the strategy, and they say, we're going to build this car for combat. And then somebody just starts chanting combat, combat, combat. And then everyone's chanting combat. And I wanted to die. Like, I felt the cringe, the secondhand embarrassment. It was just so, that moment it's supposed to be a moment of like rallying the team behind you, and you feel a surge of hope. And, we're the underdogs, and we're going into this thing. Like, it just falls flat because it's cheesy.
Yeah, and it's just like, what? Because I'm like, at the end of the day, you chose to make a movie portraying Formula One. The movie is called F1 or
F1 the movie.
F1 the movie. So you also cannot get upset when some people are pointing out that would not happen. It's okay to take liberties to a degree, but you also decided to make a movie set into the real world with the real life teams and the real life drivers, and basically it's a fan fiction. That's what this movie is, a fan fiction. And so it's just like, there should be some realism to it. I understand that it's going to be dramatic. I understand there's going to be plot lines that necessarily aren't 100% realistic because, again, it's a movie, but it's like, what are we doing here, though? Really, it's not necessarily even one plot point that bothered me as much as, like, none of it's connected. And the way the story was told was bad. They didn't utilize one single storytelling device that made it easy for anybody to follow the movie and to really care about what it was about. I didn't even understand why some things were a big deal. That's the other thing. Finishing in the points was also like, it's a big deal to finish in the points, and they're happy they finished in the points, but it didn't even feel like that was explained that well about even what constructors are and how that affects the team all that. None of that was even talked about.
They hadn't scored a point the whole season up to that point. When up to the moment when Sonny joins the team.
There was 9 races left when he joined the team.
Yeah, they hadn't scored a point. They hadn't won a race. Their goal was to win a race. And I'm like, that's a lofty goal for a team that has not scored a point at all. With 9 races left and you have a 24 race season at that point. Scoring a single point is a huge deal for a team that hasn't scored a point in over half a season. Like you said, they don't explain that. The team seems to be excited, but that's actually a major triumphant moment. And there's not a ton of explanation why.
Yeah, we don't understand why. Like, we're basically told that if he does not... So the owner of this team is Sonny's... I don't know if they were teammates.
They were teammates when he was originally in F1 in like the 90s.
Yeah. And so he owns this team, or he's like the majority shareholder of this team, but there's a board and everything, and they're pretty much wanting to jump ship, sell the shit, and back out because it's a bad investment. They're not getting anything out of it. So that's why he brings Sonny on. And I will say Sonny did just win like the 24-hour Daytona race, and he's in other series, so he does have like a successful record moving, once he kind of decided to start racing again. So like that's our first introduction to Sonny is he wins Daytona 24-hour, which is really a big deal. That was awesome.
That whole sequence at the beginning of the movie, great.
I loved that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I went to Daytona 24 this year. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty much like the vibe. So that was pretty cool. But he basically is like, I need to get some points on the board to satisfy the board. Mm-hmm. But even then, it's like nothing is explained. And I'm not saying we need to sit down and have like a classroom session of how Formula One works, but I mean, for God's sake, you decided to make an F1 movie, explain it somewhat to the audience so people can understand and be emotionally invested in them getting points and why it's a big deal. Like, it's just not. Yep. It's just...
Another moment that didn't work or pay off, and there's a lot of chatter online about we're calling it the girl stuff.
Oh yeah,
in the movie. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of criticism of there's 2 sort of prominent female characters that are part of the team. So not talking about the mother, Joshua Pierce's mother, side characters, talking about specifically 2 female characters, part of the Apex F1 team in the movie. We've got a female mechanic, and we've got Kate, who is the technical director, who we've mentioned. And a lot of people were up in arms about the way these female characters were portrayed. You've got the female mechanic who they're like, she's shown as like sort of a bumbling, accident prone, bad at her job sort of character. Honestly,
I don't love that she was portrayed that way. I have more issues with how she was portrayed, if I have an issue at all, than how Kate was.
Yeah, I don't know that her character was necessary.
No, I mean, if you're gonna have a girl mechanic, just have a girl mechanic. She was on the pit crew. At one point, she drops like the drill or something. Basically, she drops the tool.
She was in charge of getting the lug nut that holds the tire on. She holds the thing that gets
the drill.
Yeah, she holds the thing that takes it off and puts it back on. Mm-hmm. And so they do a pit stop in a race where it gets stuck and it's not working right. And when she drops it on the ground, she drops it in line with the tire. So that right as they eventually get the tire off and on. And right when the car is ready to take off out of the pit box, she tries to yank it out the way, but it like does something to the car and like causes some sort of damage. And okay, fair enough. She made a mistake. Mechanics do that. I don't love that, like, prior to that, they showed her, like, there's a scene when we're first introduced to her where she's, like, running into people and dropping things in the garage and shown to be sort of, like, clumsy.
Yeah, because I'm like, I don't want a clumsy mechanic.
No, like,
like, whether she's a girl or a boy, or they're a girl or a boy, like, why is she being betrayed this way? Like, as a klutz, like, here's the fact, not everybody can do every job on the planet. So, I'm sorry. No, some klutz that's a big deal. And so it's just like, what are we trying to portray representation of, that anybody can do any job and some ditzy girl can do that, or ditzy boy? No, it doesn't. That doesn't even make sense.
I don't know I'm trying to figure out what purpose her character served, other than to just show a female character as part of the pit crew.
Yeah, and what doesn't make sense is just have her as a part of the pit crew then. Like, why does she have to be the one character that made the mistakes as well? So, like, another scene that she has, so Sunny sticks up for her or whatever.
Yeah, because Joshua Pierce is, like, reaming into her, or, like, because she made that mistake and stuff. And then so in front of the whole team, like, everyone's there in the garage, right? And so then Sunny's character kind of sticks up for her and is like, it's fine. Like, basically tells her she doesn't do anything wrong. But even though she did.
That's the other part, is I'm like, why are we almost villainizing Joshua for being upset at that moment when she did fuck up?
And if if that had been a male character, he still would have been pissed the same way.
Exactly.
He's actually treating her more fairly by being still mad at her that she did something wrong. Like, that's what it is. The gender doesn't play a role in that moment.
Exactly. And then the next scene she has after that, Sonny Hayes is in an ice bath, shirtless, in a dark room by himself, and then she just happens to walk in and she goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I ran into you." Why is that necessary?
He's not even in a dark room. He's behind a wall of tires. They have all the tires and their blankets and
the vibe
stuff.
Was dark. It was dark in there. The sun was not in there. It wasn't 100 lights. It was moody-ish.
I'm like, but garages are supposed to be well lit. They are typically very well lit because you have to be able to see what you're doing. So it's like, why is it dark?
And why is she like, "Oh, I'm sorry"? And so the one scene where she thanks him, he has to be shirtless in an ice bath. So the only female, and that, why? Because then she's like, "Hey, thanks for sticking up for me, but don't. You're just going to make it harder for me." But we also never even see how the team does or does not treat her differently based on being a female. So it just doesn't make sense. It feels like a really lazy storytelling device that isn't executed correctly to try to show that women are treated different versus men in motorsport. But, like, the thing is she did fuck up. So what? Are we supposed to just be like, she didn't fuck up? It was just a needless character. And if you were going to have a female mechanic, because then the other side, the flip side of that is, why did you have the only female character fuck up? Fair enough, fine. Just have a female character then. Just have a female mechanic.
Why does she have to fuck up?
Like, why does she have to fuck up? And I'm not saying, it's a weird, like, discussion, because, like, people are allowed to fuck up. And if a man fucks up, it's like, it's not like Joshua said, "You fucked up because you're a girl." Mm-hmm. He didn't say that. He just is like, "Well, fuck, like, do your fucking job," basically. Like,
if you're going to have a character who's part of the pit crew, who makes a mistake during a race, who gets yelled at, rightfully so because they made a mistake, then have another character who sticks up for them, but then the mechanic is, or the part of the pit crew is like, "Thank you for sticking up for me, but don't do it because you're going to make my job harder." Like, all of that could still happen if it was a male character, but it wasn't executed in a way that mattered, right? So that particular storyline could be interesting.
Yeah, literally, but
yeah. Why are we not writing it in a way that it could be applied to a male or female character? Because that's how you get actually, like, interesting plot lines where it's not so reliant on, like, just because she's like, we're told because she's a girl in this environment that she's, like you said, she's treated differently, but we're not shown it, right? No. So that part, her being a girl, is inconsequential.
Yeah.
Because we're never shown that it actually does matter. Yeah. So you could have substituted a male mechanic in that role, and it would have been the same. Like, same impact. Nothing would have changed about the movie or that particular moment. Nothing would have changed or been different.
You could have just had it to where Joshua did not want her as a mechanic. So she was like, in a way, almost like she wasn't the one changing stuff. And then you have a male fuck up. And because it's okay to make him a little sexist. Make him a little sexist. And he doesn't want her on the pit. Like that's not how he wants her role executed. So maybe she's on the sidelines. Brad Pitt or Sonny Hayes notices. And he's like, I want her on mine. And then she executes the job perfectly. That's a way easier way to showcase what you're trying to showcase. And
that a woman can be part of a team and
it functioned completely fine. Then Joshua can see that and go, fuck, I'm an asshole. And then literally have
character growth that we have not seen at all in this movie.
And then he could easily apologize to her. Because also another weird part is remember when he walks in and she's like, hi, like she's a fan. And I'm thinking, are they fucking? Dead ass. I was like, are they like having an affair or something? Because like, why is she acting like that? I'm very confused by this reaction.
If you're gonna, there are two ways they could have gone with this female pit crew mechanic character. And they didn't go either way, and it was just bad.
They didn't go anyway.
Yeah, you could either do she's actually really proficient, like you said, really proficient at her job, but is facing discrimination being a woman. And discrimination is a very strong word, but that's what it is, or at least prejudice in that moment for being a woman in a male-dominated sport. She's proficient at her job. She faces this discrimination. Sonny Hayes' character comes in and is like, fuck it. I don't care if you're a boy or a girl. If you can do the job, do the job. If you're good, be part of my team. And then, like you said, you get the Joshua Pierce's character realizes he was being a dick, and then character growth. There we go.
So that's like that simple.
That's one way. The other way is if you want to go into it, you show more of her and the issues she's facing. Again, it goes into the discrimination, being a woman in a male-dominated sport. Maybe some of the other mechanics are making comments toward her or being snide or making backhanded comments about her being a woman and not being able to do the job. Maybe something happens that causes her, that they say something to her that fucks with her. And that's why she has an incident dropping the thing, and making the mistake during the pit stop. And then she's having to try to explain or be like, there's something there that shows she's being treated differently.
Yeah, literally
because she's a woman.
Have a male mechanic make the exact same mistake as her, have her make the mistake, and see how they're treated differently. It's just very simple.
Or even, and because women face this in workplaces all over the place. Maybe you have one mechanic on the team that's harassing her or really targeting her specifically for being a woman. And then there's something that occurs with that, right? Where that's affecting her job performance. And then when Sonny Hayes sticks up for her and says, no, it's fine. And then she tells him like, you can't, thank you, but you can't do that because it makes my life more difficult. And then you show how that one mechanic on the team is treating her differently. And it's like, really, you need this man to pick your battle for you? Like you could go so much more in that direction. That would have been a lot more illuminating, because if we're going to portray, let me just put it out there, if we're going to portray a woman working in a male-dominated field, you can't just show her excelling and having no problems, because that is not realistic. A woman realistically going into a female mechanic as part of an F1 team is going to face harassment. Point blank period, because you cannot tell me that in a team of how many mechanics, 20 mechanics, 30 mechanics per car, that not one of them is going to treat her differently because she's a woman. I don't believe it.
I don't know. It would have been interesting because there are female like pit crew members like right now on the grid. So it would have been interesting to really, that's the other thing. If you're going to have this story and this character, did you talk to anybody who is doing this job that can then lend you like their lens so you can see their experience? It just feels like it's lazy. It's lazy what representation? You just you thought you did something and you didn't. And it's just
that
stupid.
That whole character could have been something, could have been interesting, wasn't.
No.
Didn't ultimately go anywhere. It felt like they just threw her in there to be like, look, see, we have a woman who's a mechanic and she's part of the team and she has a couple of speaking lines and that's it.
Yeah, and then like she pretty much, there's never an issue again. Sonny gets pretty close with the pit or like the pit crew because he spends time with them or whatever. that's like it. That's not explored whatsoever.
No,
it's
and
super bizarre.
that could have been, again, way more interesting of an aspect to an F1 movie that we don't get to see a lot, even as people who follow Formula One, is what are the dynamics like within a pit crew team and the mechanics and the work that they put in to fix a damaged car, and all that stuff would be very interesting to see portrayed on a movie, and then they didn't even touch it. So the other female character, Kate, we've talked about her a little bit. I don't actually have a problem with her character in terms of like a lot of the criticism she was getting is that, oh, you have this woman who's worked her way to being the technical director of an F1 team. She's got to be super smart, super ambitious, super passionate about what she's doing, which I think all of that was portrayed well. I got that from her character. They didn't have to just tell me. I saw it.
Yeah.
They showed it to me.
Yes, exactly.
And then she has a romantic entanglement with Brad Pitt's character where they kind of are flirty and getting closer, and a couple moments where it's like, oh, they're like super happy and embracing after a race or something, but then they kind of like, oh wait, like that was a little inappropriate, like we kind of got to keep our distance because we are colleagues and work together. But then we get to a moment where like you looked at me in the theater and was like, I just want him to kiss.
Just do it already.
Just do it. Because there's tension building up, which again, I had no problem with. Eventually they sleep together. It's sort of a one night stand kind of thing. But
she's very affectionate afterwards.
Yeah. Like weirdly, like
I'm having more issue with that. Why are we portraying that she had like a fun time with a hot driver, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm in love. You're my man.
And he was very clearly uncomfortable, where he's like, why is she all up on me? Like,
but then that's also, it was just a really weird thing. Like, it was bizarre.
Like, they could just be fuck buddies. Like, they could have portrayed that where they're like friends. They have this moment and they sleep together, and then they can still go on being flirty and friendly and working together, because I think they actually did that to an extent. But like the little bit after they sleep together was a little weird. And then they have this moment at the end of the movie where they kind of are just like, well, if we meet later on, like it's been fun. And if we meet later on down the road, great. If not, great, which I think is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But there were moments where they tried to almost imply that she felt more.
That's actually, if I have an issue at all, it's that. So it's like,
I don't care that they slept together. I don't care that you have, it's like the one woman, major woman character that has a prominent role on an F1 team, and she sleeps with the main character. I don't care.
No.
It's a romantic storyline in this movie that otherwise has no romance in it. I'm fine with that. Like, it didn't bother me at all.
No. And the reason it didn't bother me is because to me, I did not see their roles as anything. I didn't see a power imbalance there because of who she is. So I didn't see it. It would have been really disgusting if he had a relationship with the mechanic character.
Yes.
That would have been disgusting. But she, from my point of view, has just as much, if not more power than Sunny. So at that point, they seem pretty equal, like power-wise. I didn't really feel that, I just didn't care because there wasn't a power imbalance really.
No, their roles within the team, as a technical director, she's helping decide like the direction that the car will take in development. She weighs in on strategy some, but other than that, she's not like working directly with him.
Like, she's not his race engineer.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. People are like talking, some people are upset from that portrayal, mentioning Esteban Ocon, and his engineer at Haas, which is like the first female F1 engineer. But like, that's not who she was to him. And that would have been an inappropriate, I think at that point, but that wasn't her role.
Yeah.
And so it just felt really inconsequential, really. It just felt like it was what it was. That didn't bother me. If anything, I was bothered how she was like a lovesick teenager after they slept together. That bothered me more than that she slept with him.
I mean, because I think that, again, every other part of their relationship and dynamic was fine to me.
Yeah.
I think they had good sexual tension and they had good chemistry, just as like friendly banter, flirtiness. Like that was all fine to me. I think that they had a good back and forth when they're talking about, there's like a good push and pull when they're talking about actual work stuff.
Yeah.
Again, she comes across as intelligent, capable, passionate about her job, ambitious, all this stuff. and it makes her an attractive character. You see why Brad Pitt's character is drawn to her.
Yeah.
Right? And to have her have these moments, and they're not big. There's just a couple small moments that just seem inconsistent with her as a character that were just odd to me. That
I
again,
agree.
I had more of a problem with, like you said, the lovesick sort of, she's more infatuated than, just have her be a grown-ass woman with a grown-ass job who has a friendly banter and relationship with somebody, and then they had sex once, and that's it. Like, and they can still continue to work together. Like, it doesn't cause any sort of drama between them and their ability to do their jobs. Yeah, she gets upset when he gets into his accident and stuff.
But anybody should on the team. They all care about each other.
Exactly. Even
if they should.
If they hadn't slept together prior to that moment, I think she still would have been just as affected because they're friends.
Exactly. Like, no, that was so.
I don't care that they slept together. No. I care that they portrayed her as I care that her character was inconsistent.
Yeah, I care that it was inconsistent based on the fact that it was just, that was just, what the fuck, stupid.
Yeah. The getting caught sleeping together.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Okay. This is the other thing. Like, basically what we just said, stand on business. So they sleep together, and then the owner of the team, like Sunny Hayes' ex-teammate, comes to the hotel room, and she opens the door. And he's like, where is he? She goes, what makes you think that he's here? She lists all these reasons, like, why she should be offended that he even insinuated that Sunny is here.
She's playing this, like, how dare you insinuate or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
For, like, a couple seconds.
And then she goes, he's over here. And he's in here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck was that? That was just stupid.
It's supposed to be played for, like, a comedic moment, I guess. But it just didn't. It wasn't.
It really felt like that moment. And in a way, they did portray her, like, by having that character pretty much come and ruin their private moment. They ruined her character, where it really doesn't need to be anybody's business who you're fucking or who you are having an entanglement with, as long as, there's not a power dynamic there, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, why did anybody need to know besides those two characters? Like, having him come and interrupt that moment really is what sort of put a bad light on them sleeping together. And it just felt like, why did you include that at all? Mm-hmm. They could have just slept together and nobody knew but them. Like, nobody else needed to know.
For some reason, they needed another character to know that they slept together. But I don't know why, because there's never any payoff after that moment.
Exactly.
It's never a problem. Like, it's not like they're reported to HR. It's not like it affects their performance at work. It's not like they're making decisions suddenly differently than they would have because they're in some sort of entanglement. It's not even a relationship. It's just they slept together. Like, that's
exactly
it. Nothing changes from them sleeping together, because I think, to me, them sleeping together, it just serves as a moment for those two characters to connect.
Exactly.
And release some tension that had been building up until that point. But, like, there's no other thing that changes as a result of them sleeping together. Like you said, there's no reason for any other character to need to know, because even once that character finds out, nothing else changes. They simply had that moment in there, I think, as some sort of comedic relief that wasn't necessary.
And that's really what sort of shed a bad light on the moment to begin with. Like, the fact that you had the character acknowledge pretty much what the audience might be thinking.
Like, why they shouldn't have been together, or that it was inappropriate, or that all that, like, it
was just unnecessary, and really is what ruined it. And it was just should have had them sleep together and move on. Mm-hmm. We didn't need that moment. It was just stupid.
Yeah.
So, hated that.
Another moment that just didn't pay off.
No, it just wasn't necessary. I mean, also story pacing wise, just wasn't, like, basically, so Sunny joins the team. He's on there. Him and Joshua kind of butt heads. And then during a race that rains, Sunny's sort of telling the team what to tell Joshua, because his goal is to help Joshua score points, which I found very interesting, considering Sunny seemed like the type of character who wants to win himself, but then all of a sudden he's helping Joshua get points. And then Joshua gets hurt. He wrecks during this race, and then he's out of commission for like 3 races or something like that. And then during that time, Sunny Hayes is like killing it with these upgrades that came from a discussion him and Kate had about how he would like to see the direction of the car go. It really just didn't pay off at how much the team had grown, how much like they were liking each other. It was really this montage to a song I really liked but it didn't pay off emotionally and didn't make me invested in the team whatsoever because of how quickly, like, there were so many things that were focused on that just didn't matter. Like, it didn't add anything to the story. Like, pretty much all the scenes we've already kind of been discussing. So we also never once talked about who took Josh's place.
Yeah, he was mentioned at the beginning of the movie, and apparently Josh had like some issue with him being his teammate and was basically like, please anybody but him. And then he's shown at like a press conference where they're like going to introduce that this reserve driver is going to be taking Josh's seat while he's recovering from his injuries and burns from the crash. And he's shown for like a second. And that's it.
He's not a part of the montage where Sonny's like scoring points and doing, I'm like, what is happening? So that just story pacing wise, like it just was not great. Like so many moments were focused on way too long. Like even getting Sonny to join the team took way too long. One thing that they did do that I liked, was so Sonny does tell Kate after they sleep together and she's all like, oh, acting all lovey-dovey on the balcony or whatever. Sonny pretty much says that he's searching for this moment when he's in a car and the rest of the world sort of disappears and he feels like he's flying and it's just him in the car and like nothing else can touch him essentially. And so later in the race, after he has a pretty horrible wreck and his vision's all fucked up, which is another issue I kind of have because like that's very dangerous, but whatever, this is a movie. It's not real, even though it's called F1 the movie, based off a real thing, But that being said, at the very, very end of the movie, he essentially reaches that state and it's like a lap or two left and he's leading the race because Joshua wrecked Lewis Hamilton so he could lead the race. The fuck? I don't know. And he reaches that state, right? And I think that the way that was portrayed was great. If you're a racing motorsport fan, you may have heard of people reference something called flow state, which is essentially like you just feel like you and the car or whatever you're driving have become like one and you are so in tune with it that it's like everything else around you disappears and you're just driving.
You're just on it.
And
everything feels very natural.
Yeah.
Everything just comes easy. Like it obviously it's still hard work, but it's just you're not at tension, like you're not fighting the car. Everything is just flow.
Yeah, it's like the car is like an extension of your body essentially. And I think the way that they portrayed that was great. I loved that because I feel like that was great. I thought they represented what that feeling could like feel like in what you hear, what you see, everything about it.
The score the visuals, everything's kind of blurring by, but then you do have these moments of focus from the character's point of view. The score was great at that point because there's like this silence, but there's some ambient sort of noise in the background, and then you get this sense of like a heartbeat sort of vibe where like I actually like felt my like there was tension. There was like anxiety watching this moment because you're like, oh my God, is he going to do it? Is he going to crash? Is he going to make it across the line? Like I was feeling that and it was amping up and we're reaching toward this climax of when he wins the race. And that I agree. That was portrayed very well. I really enjoyed that moment because I'm feeling what I think the character is feeling in that moment.
Yeah. No, I like that. So then at the end of the movie, so Sonny wins the race because Joshua helps him win. Lewis gets fucked at Abu Dhabi again. And then Sonny's like, all right, well, bye. He leaves and then he drives in the desert to go do this like desert Baja something race.
Yeah. It's like monster trucks, but not.
It's like rally, but not. It's weird. So
they're on sand.
Yeah. And it was just like, I'm supposed to view. It's like I understand what they want me to feel, but I'm annoyed because I don't feel that way because you didn't help me feel this way. You're basically like, well, Sonny's just, it doesn't matter. Like, and he's like, I'm just on to the next thing now, even though he had like plenty of opportunity to stay and to have the career that like he kind of was robbed of like 30 years ago. That was bizarre. That was nuts because like literally in the very start of the movie, he's dreaming in his van. He has a shitty van he sleeps in at the Daytona 24-hour. And he's having a flashback nightmare / dream of his Formula One wreck from back in the day. And so clearly it haunts him. Then he's approached to drive a Formula One and he's like, no. And then he does it anyway. And then he wins a race and he helps bring this team up and he has a fan base and people are really liking him. And he's sort of having this moment that he was robbed of because of his accident. And it's like,
It doesn't affect him.
no. And he's like, okay, well, glad I had this moment. Bye. Like, you would think he'd want to continue, but even that aside, basically, there's also, when he does have a really big wreck and he gets hurt or whatever, and then his friend, who is the owner of the team, becomes aware of how bad Sonny's injuries were from his original wreck when he was in F1 and how basically he shouldn't be driving a car. It's not like that's why Sonny stops either, where he's finally made peace. He's still racing. So like
it's not like his body is preventing him from doing it, but his mind and spirit are still willing. It's not even like that, which would be a good plot point because again, you have the young rookie driver on the team and then you have the older, more experienced guy, and the way that they approach racing is different. And like that would be a character motivation for Sonny Hayes, where he's like still got this competitive, I want to win, I want to feel like I'm flying, I want to reach that moment, and I'm chasing that constantly, but like my body's giving out again, like, and it partially stems back to the original injury I got, 30 years ago, but like that would be a character building like moment and a character motivation sort of moment. And we just don't like, it doesn't seem like any of it affects him. Like, and he, again, no character growth. He's the same character at the end of the movie that he was at the beginning of the movie.
Exactly. Like if anybody had growth, even though it was minimal, it would be Joshua, because at this point it seems like Sonny has no obstacles but himself, but he doesn't care. And Joshua at least became slightly more humbled. And by the end of it, he's approached by Toto Wolff and he's like, hey, you ever looking for a spot? You can join Mercedes. But then he's like, no, I'm happy where I am. And I'm like, okay, cool, growth or whatever. But like, it's very minimal and comes at the very end of the movie. It just feels like these characters have absolutely, like, especially Sonny, he never has to reflect on his behavior, ever. But Joshua does. Minimal, but he does. And it's just boring.
Like, and Sonny just doesn't ever, like you said, his character, like there's nothing stopping him from doing what he wants to do, right? So he's chasing that feeling of flying. We find out that's his motivation for why he goes from race series to race series, and he's chasing that moment, right? And then, but there's nothing stopping him from doing that. So like where's his conflict? What internal battle is he facing? Because everything that seemingly could be an internal battle for him, it just isn't.
Exactly.
So like the stuff with his dad, the stuff from his accident, the stuff from maybe feeling guilt or not guilt over his teammate crashing, stuff with Kate, stuff from, there's no internal, because you can have internal and external sort of battles as a character. All of his stuff seems to be external. And that's not the interesting stuff.
No.
When we're talking about plot and character development, that's not the interesting stuff.
No. And what's crazy is like he eventually is like kicked off the team before the last race because he got hurt. And he's like, I'd rather die in that car than not do this. So he's like fighting to be back on the team. And then he just is for the last race. But then he's like, all right, I won, bye. None of it is consistent. Like his stance and how he feels emotionally nothing's consistent about it. And it's just boring.
Before we get into how we would fix this movie.
Yes.
Because we have thoughts. You did have some behind the scenes sort of like fun facts about what was real, like, or what was scenarios in the plot that were drawn from real life.
Yes. So in the movie, Sonny Hayes' character gets in a really horrible, it's horrible. And that was based off a real wreck that happened in 1990. His name was Martin Donnelly, and he was approached by, production and gave a lot of insight and helped a lot out with this. But he had and literally frame by frame, how they showed in the movie is what happened to him. Like he's literally laying in the middle of the track. It's horrifying looking. And it happened at 160 miles per hour during practice at the Spanish Grand Prix. he was driving for Lotus and his suspension went out, which caused a violent crash where it happened exactly like the movie. So like
He's like ejected from the car.
yeah, the car breaks in half, and so he's literally still strapped to his seat that came out of the car because the car was ripped in half and laying in the middle. And thankfully, they were able to save his life. But the point is, that was pulled from something real that happened. Because at first, you could watch it and go, "Bruh, that seems a little dramatic." No, it's real. Because that was my thought. I was not aware that that was based off something real till later on. I was informed that it was, and so that was like, okay, that was an interesting way to pay like homage, however you say it, to somebody that actually experienced this. And the other character that is pulled and she's based off some real people was Kate. So the actress that played her pulled a lot of inspiration from Bernie Collins, who is currently a Sky Sports commentator, and she is a former Aston Martin head of strategy. And so she has a lot of influence on Kate's character. She's also Scottish, and so that's Kate is Scottish in the movie. And so a lot of inspirations pulled from her. Another person that influences Kate's character is Ruth Buscom, who is our girl. She is a commentator on F1 TV. She's a like strategy analyst in a way. She's like she has educated us so much on really understanding strategy,
She was a former strategist for F1 teams. So she worked with Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, and there was somebody else, Sauber.
And so she worked with them, and Bernie Collins, it looks like, was the same way. They both had worked with strategy before, and so it was cool to see like they did approach a lot of people in the sport in some way, shape, or form to try to help ground the movie. And so in Kate's character, I could see that. The thing that's funny is you look at that and you're like, oh yeah, like you said earlier, I believed Kate's character. I really liked her, and it's interesting to see that she was so heavily influenced by two important female people in Formula One right now. The other thing that we really liked that we said was the racing stuff and how accurate it is. Well, of course, because Lewis Hamilton is a producer of the movie, and he was really, really hell-bent on like, no, this is the gear you should be in. No, this would look like this. So that's why that's very accurate and one of the best parts of the movie. So it seems that the people that they did, like basically when they included outside people into, the writer's room
when they include
consulted
consultants
yes.
who have actual real world experience in this field and know what they're talking about, those parts, they pay off and they really shine. So the accident that Joshua Pierce's character gets in, basically he like hits a part of the track, his car flips several times over the barrier, bursts into flames. That accident was inspired by two different F1 crashes. So one of them was Roman Grosjean's crash that happened it was 2020. It was in 2020. It's featured in Drive to Survive, the Netflix series. So it was partially inspired by that, where his car like flipped over a barrier, broke into, caught on fire, sprayed fuel everywhere. And then the other one was Niki Lauda's infamous crash in 1976.
Was it not also inspired by some F2 crash? Because that bitch went in the air.
Yeah, the way that it flipped and stuff, it looked like you can compare side by side. It kind of looks that same way, but that is not referenced in this article.
And then what was nuts is, which this may have been another thing. So back in the day, so that happens. Sonny sees that it happens, pulls over, runs and goes and helps.
Oh yeah, Joshua. Goes to check on him and like grabs a fire extinguisher from like a Marshall trackside and tries to put out the fire.
Yeah, that may also be referencing a time where Senna this is back when he was like racing, there was a driver that pretty much got into an accident and then was knocked out, but his foot was still on the accelerator, and Senna just happened to notice it. He pulls over and he gets out of the car, because if he wouldn't have, the car was going to explode and probably would have died. And so there are moments like that I think are really just kind of referencing characters, or not characters, they're referencing like real life moments, but they're kind of just encapsulating them in a single moment. But like we said, moments that they clearly consulted people about were the best moments in the film, or they developed the better characters. I guess we'll jump into how we would fix it. So how would you fix it?
First off, I would not make Brad Pitt the main character. I like him as an actor. I think his character plays a role in this movie. I would not have made him like the main person we follow. I would have made the Joshua Pierce's character the main character. I think that's a more interesting story. It's more indicative of modern Formula 1. I think that would serve as a real like grounding moment, because there's his character has moments of like, you could pull from like Lewis Hamilton's actual real life experience of becoming the first Black Formula One driver and the only so far. Like that could be, you can pull moments from that to inform Joshua Pierce's character and what he had to experience and go through when he talks about in the movie experiencing like, you don't know what I had to go through and the things that I had to do and put up with and what I experienced to get here. That could be some of those barriers, I'm sure, right? So if we can look at it from his perspective of coming into the sport as a rookie, and then his team's not doing great, then they want to bring in this older super veteran driver, which Brad Pitt is in his 50s or 60s. He's got to be. If he was driving with Senna in the 90s, even if he was like 20 years old when that happened.
That was one of my, that's why when I was asking, like, what year does this movie take place? Because you've set him up to be ridiculously old. If you would have at least told me he's like supposed to be 40 something or even 50 something, I'm like young 50s. It's kind of like,
if he was driving with Senna in like the early 90s, he would have been maybe, let's say it's 90, 93. If he was 20 years old around that time, if this movie takes place in 2023, that's 30 years later. He's minimum 50 years old, right? So probably a little bit older, in his mid 50s. So we've got super young driver. We've got super old Sonny Hayes coming in his, mid 50s minimum. He's at least like 53, 54, somewhere around there. You get then this dynamic of them butting heads and him having the old school ways of trying to do things. And so maybe at some point he, imparts some wisdom like he does in the actual movie when he's trying to teach him about Sonny Hayes is trying to teach Joshua Pierce about patience and knowing when to make the right move in the right moment. Like that could have been a thorough line throughout the movie, like, of that kind of stuff. And even like if we want to incorporate the female mechanic line, like the storyline that we talked about earlier, that could be another teaching moment of like, but then you can also then take the time to focus on the stuff we already talked about with his character of like the demands of social media and marketing and fans and the role that the media and their judgment of you as a driver plays in the sport now, which is so different than it was, 30 years ago. All that stuff could have been great. And we could see then the character development of what he's super concerned with and his motivations at the beginning. He can then mature and grow from that, right? So I think that to fix the movie, you really should probably focus on him as the main character.
Yes, I would. Yeah, I agree. I think the movie went wrong from the start of bringing in a driver who has not been on the grid in 30 years. Like you said, not only him being the main character, right? The entire concept of him coming back at all is stupid. It's dumb as fuck. I'm sorry. It just is. So if you want to do this concept of an older driver, because I understand too, I'm not an ageist person. I don't like ageism. I think if you can perform the job, you can perform the job. Yeah. That Alonso, Lewis, love it.
Yeah, Alonso and Lewis are both in their 40s, 40s?
Yeah, Lewis is 40 and Alonso's like 44, I think.
Yeah, so they're older they're on seriously considered on the older end for a Formula 1 driver, and they're still going strong.
Yeah. So no issue with that. But what I think would have been a very interesting story, let's just not do this plot point of let's bring back a driver who hasn't been on the grid in 30 years and then have him raise a rookie. That doesn't make any sense because he has not been on the grid. Mm-hmm. The entire environment is different. None of that makes sense. What can he teach Joshua? Nothing. Not a fucking thing.
He can teach him things from a mentality perspective, from a mindset, from a racing spirit sort of thing. He can teach him things about strategy.
But even then, not really, because the strategy part, because the way that they were doing strategy 30 years ago, their pit stops weren't 3 seconds long. What does he know about current Formula 1? Not a fucking thing. Like,
they at least don't tell us that in the movie.
I mean, he basically says he's been following it.
And he has been racing in other series, so it's not like he hasn't been behind the wheel of any sort of car for 30 years.
Yeah, but an endurance racing is 100% different than Formula One. So it's like, it's not like he's in a similar environment. But him understanding some technology of newer cars, fair enough. Because like we said, he is in other racing series. But to act like his knowledge, and that's the other part, they're acting like his knowledge from the 90s is relevant right now, and it's
that's
not.
The whole thorough line of like that character is he's rugged, old school, and he's trying to get things back to being simpler. Everything is too much technology. It's too much relying on, all these newfangled things. And it's like, no, you got to get back to the basics. Like that's what his character is in this movie. And I understand what they're trying to go for, but I agree it doesn't work to an extent. Again, it would be more effective if we're talking about him going from like a mentality perspective for the driver, the more mental side. I think that the way that it's portrayed in the movie, and they say this, that he is their Hail Mary. He is like, they have no other options for the team in terms of like, everything they've tried up to this point has not been working. And so they need to bring in something different and completely shake it up. I could see that. I see where, what else have we got to lose by bringing in this guy who's complete sort of unknown quantity, right? But then maybe if you don't want him to be brought in as a driver, then you bring him in as a team principal or something, or an advisor or something to that effect, right? If you're wanting to shake things up, you bring him in that role, and then he's like, forget everything you thought you know about Formula One and about strategy.
Yes, if we're so dead set that the main character has to be a 50-something, 60-something-year-old former Formula One driver, let's go that route. I think it's a mistake either way. I think that it's just because then it's like, who is his relationship gonna be with at that point? That's like, I actually like that as a movie, but to fix this one, if the whole point of this movie is we're gonna have these two characters that are complete opposites, right? I think it's wrong to portray that Joshua being worried about how the actual world of Formula One works now as wrong. I think that's stupid. That's how it works. So to have Sonny Hayes come in and go, oh, that's stupid, makes no sense whatsoever, because those are things he has to care about. Like the racing stuff.
It would make sense if they had those thoughts and reactions, but then Pierce is able to prove Sonny wrong and that it does matter.
Like that's the thing too, is it's like, it basically, like, Josh is just all wrong all the time about everything, and somehow Sonny's right about everything, which makes no sense. And so how I would fix it is I would have had, if I'm going to keep the theme of an older driver, younger driver, I'm going to go ahead and have Sonny on the team. I'm going to keep him on the team. He's the one on the team. Mm-hmm. He's Lewis. He's Alonso, right? And they can't get shit done. Nothing is working. And he's a jaded character. He used to be a guy that used to take a lot of risks, all this type of stuff. And that's sort of what we're led to believe. But he's had like a really just stagnant career, but he's stayed because he's consistent, but he hasn't performed at the level that we would have expected his career to go. He's like a Hulkenberg now. He's like a Magnussen, he's like that at this point.
He's established. He's fine as a driver.
But he's
not winning the races.
No.
He can get points, but that's about it.
Yeah, and now maybe he's not getting any points, right? He's on this team that is just total ass.
And maybe, you could even do if maybe he's new to this team, but he's been in Formula One for a while. And like with Lewis Hamilton, they spent a lot of money to sign him, and they're not getting their money's worth out of him as a driver, right? I meant comparison to Lewis being the lot of money part, not that they're getting. Oh my god, The comparison was that they spent a lot of money to sign him as a experienced driver, but then the comparison to Lewis ends. Either way, he's established on this team, not doing as well, or he could be a new sign to the team, trying to figure things out and vibe with them. Season hasn't been going great, and they're not getting their money's worth out of him. So
how I see it is, this guy, if you're going to have this old rugged character, whatever, have him on the team. And like we said, he's established. I think maybe he's comfortable. He's lost his passion. He's not ready to give up, but he's not as passionate as he once was, right? We don't know what to do. They find him difficult to work with. This, and that. His teammate, his teammate's going to get, I don't know what happens to his teammate.
But there's a seat open.
And I think the smartest thing to do, That's where your rookie comes in. That's where you bring in
pull
the
him up.
rookie. You pull him up out of F2. Go ahead and establish these feeder series that they exist. Go ahead and establish this character.
Or maybe he's a reserve driver or something.
Nah, for drama, he's an F2 driver. And so just for the dramas.
For the dramas.
And so he gets pulled up. No experience. He's never even done a practice session before, which would be silly. But he hasn't because this is a movie. He gets pulled up. He is bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and he is excited as fuck, but he is intimidated, and this is a completely different world to him, and he is the perfect vehicle for us to learn what the fuck Formula One's about, because he's fixing to learn about it too, babe.
Yeah.
That's how you could do this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then he is going to reignite the passion of the senior driver, but he's also going to learn from the senior driver. Like, he's going to show him the ropes, but kind of like, you know, they don't get along, they do get along. Like, and also, we're going to explore the father thing, that both of their dads are dead. The senior driver is going to find healing by fathering this rookie, and this rookie is going to heal from having this senior driver be this new father figure. It's fucking easy as shit. It's not fucking rocket science. And so you have them get points. And that's also how you can explain the race weekend. All right, kid, it's media day. It's this, it's that. And so one of the plot points could easily be that they really have been pushing for this senior driver to become something else. A team principal. Something else. You know, he's on his way out. It's a fact. Like, people do not get to do this forever, and I think it's an important thing to explore. Like, Sonny being able to just do whatever the fuck he wants when he wants to isn't fucking real, especially at his age in the movie. Like, it's not that I'm like, people can't do anything, but it's just a fact that at some point it's going to happen.
At some point, the body gives out, the desire to keep racing in that manner gives out, and drivers then move on to what you would call like a more advisor or senior role within the sport.
Exactly.
So they become commentators, they call races, they become managers of younger drivers in other series.
Exactly.
They become advisors on the team, they become strategists on the team. It's all this, like, there's honestly a lot of there. Not a lot. There are several current F1 drivers that are already kind of moving into some of those avenues.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's easily could be a plot point. And then the senior driver realizes, as he's sort of like reluctantly helping this rookie get his footing, he realizes how, like, and it's also like this rookie is talented. He is Max Verstappen. He is a Lewis Hamilton, because extremely successful rookies, right? Very young as well. Well, obviously Max was younger, but the point is, like, you have two extremely talented people you could easily base his character off of, where the rookie is, you know, you got to make him interesting. You got to make him like he's there and he's intimidated, but he's also got a really defensive exterior because of shit he's had to deal with, and feeling like he's had to deal with a lot of it on his own because he doesn't have his dad and he hasn't had somebody always looking out for him, and he's really had to struggle on his own. So he learns a lot, reluctantly. Character growth, very simple, very easy. This driver, same exact thing, where he's like, okay, fuck, I haven't seen somebody like this in a long time. Another reason he's very jaded is because if we're going to go with the whole, like, where's another thing of contention for this older character? He had a teammate, because another thing that F1 tried to do was really explore the fact how dangerous this is. Mm-hmm. How dangerous like Formula One is, right? And what the risk you accept as a driver the second you get in the car. And another way you can do that is his teammate died. And it really affected the trajectory of his career. Mm-hmm. And he hasn't really been emotionally involved or emotionally like attached to somebody since then. Is it cliche? Maybe, but it is an easy way to tell a story and to let these characters bond so this relationship can mean something to both of them. Because that's the problem, is the relationship between Sonny and Joshua as it stands means nothing to either driver. Nope. And so it's a very easy way to get these characters to intertwine with each other, to mean something to each other. And then at the very end of the movie, you have them probably score points. I don't think we should go for winning. I think that's a little dramatic, but I also think that's why you would explain, like,
But it's a racing
it's a
movie. Somebody
maybe,
has to win a race.
Maybe one of them wins, right? Maybe the way it even happened could stay the same.
I was gonna say that even the way it happens, where you think they're gonna try and Sonny Hayes' character is trying to sacrifice his race so that Joshua Pierce's character can win it, and then you end up having the red flag come out, and then it ends up flipping into where then Pierce sacrifices his race so then Sonny Hayes can get the win.
Exactly, that can all stay the same.
Exactly,
beautiful.
I agree.
But now it means so much more because of how much these characters actually mean to each other now. And so...
And I think that would even make a greater moment for if when, the way that Pierce's character gets into his accident, and then because he's not listening and heeding the advice of the older driver, and then Sonny Hayes' character then can get mad at him.
Because he's like, fuck, you almost because he's having, look at my old teammate, this happened already. There's so much more, much more layered.
That would have been so much better, because then you have actual anger and a sense of guilt. And because you told him to do something, but he didn't do it the way you told him to, but you still pushed him, and then he got in this accident and he could have died. And you have him have the anger that the mother had in this movie. Sonny Hayes' character has that anger toward Pierce's character.
And so it's like these characters have to have some sort of an actual layered, complicated relationship. Otherwise, what the fuck is the point of this?
Mm-hmm.
And then to wrap it up with a bow, you literally... So, one of the things of this team was they're trying to sell it. They're trying to do this. They're trying to do that. Instead of them not, I think someone buys it. And nobody knows who bought it until the end of the movie, and it's the senior driver who is now going to own the team and probably be the team principal. And now he's going to have this driver, and that's how the movie ends. And then they're gonna, and then maybe
they spent so much money on his contract and signing him to the team, he uses all that money to buy the major stake in the team.
Because he also isn't the one with the gambling. We don't have to do the gambling problem thing. We are having he's now you know what, I'm ready to do this shit. And that's what he does. And it's not hard for him to find investors to do so because he's very consistent and he's this, that, whatever, right? And now he's ready to be in that role because this whole year with this rookie, I'm I don't know if it should be a midfield thing. That's, writer's room stuff.
Yeah.
But that's a very easy way to do it. And then at literally the ending scene could be them find him and the driver that he's now very close with. They're looking for their next driver.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. They're at a go-kart track. They're at an F2 race. They're at an F4 race. They're doing whatever because that's how much trust they have. And that's a little...
You know what? It could be a character that we've met at the beginning from F2 that was friends or even rivals. Could have been good if it was a rival of Joshua Pierce's character from F2 that did really well in the F2 championship. And he could have been like...
You know what you do? You literally nod your head towards Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. That's what you do. It's that easy. And that's how the movie ends.
And that sets you up for the sequel.
And then another thing, don't fucking set it in the real world. That's stupid as fuck. I think that was literally one of the things holding this movie back from being anything, was having it set in real life. Having it set with the actual Formula One drivers on the grid. Because guess what? We never got to talk to any of them.
Nope.
That was another thing that would just kind of suck. We couldn't explore the world of Formula One because it was truly filmed in the world of Formula One. And the drivers aren't actors. So it's it was like this little tiny bubble was taking place, or that's where pretty much the movie took place. Even though the world is big and they're showing clips of the races and the paddock and stuff, the world still felt way too small for us to really understand drivers. And that's another thing, one of the things that this senior driver can deal with is the fact that a lot of people think he's washed up and needs to bounce, and other drivers feel that way, younger drivers feel that way. The press, all this stuff, and you really limit yourself to what you can accomplish as a storyteller when you're trying to make it take place in the actual world. Because it's a documentary, but it's not.
Yeah, so as a fan of Formula One, I enjoyed all the little cameos and getting to see the other drivers and but it was such the briefest glimpses. If you blinked, you would have missed seeing Oscar Piastri stand next to Brad Pitt's character.
Yes.
If you blinked, you would have missed it. Cause I was like, oh my God, it's Oscar. It happened so fast that I don't know that the payoff was there to justify it, you know? And again, I understand them wanting to try and ground it in the real world of Formula One. But if you're gonna do that, it has to be more. Like it can't just be these fleeting glimpses of drivers. But again, drivers are not actors. They're trying to actually do their real jobs, which is to be a driver when all this stuff was filmed during the actual season. So yeah, I agree. It was fun to get to see the glimpses of the drivers and all the little cameos and stuff. Or, you get the moment where Max comes on the radio and says, "That was naughty," or "That was very naughty," or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that having those glimpses was fine, but I do ultimately agree that it didn't add enough when the storyline just wasn't there. And it's not like it was a biopic. It wasn't like it was we're retelling a story that actually played out in Formula One. It was just it was an alternate reality, a fan fiction.
It was, and I personally just feel it limited what they were able to accomplish because that's how they chose to do it, and that's probably ultimately what is going to lead to this movie being like a storytelling failure. Is because that they were so consumed with the way that and the concept is cool, but it doesn't pay off. And yeah, so that's what I would do. That's my movie, so don't fucking steal it. You better call.
And how would we incorporate female characters into the movie?
I would just have them in it. I'm not going to make it a big thing. It doesn't have to be a big thing.
I agree.
Like, it doesn't have to be this.
Either.
Like, it just doesn't have to be like to pick the story.
They can still fulfill roles of characters in the movie and just be women.
Just be a female mechanic. Like, we don't need you. And then I could keep that same plot point of the female mechanic being overlooked or whatever, and then actually she's experiencing sexism from the senior driver at that point, and it's the younger driver who's like obviously younger and more hip with how to not be an asshole and sexist. Have him be the one that's like, no, you be my mechanic. And then once again, character growth coming. The older driver's learning from the younger driver, and so they're learning from each other, and they're like important to each other.
And there can absolutely no romance between the younger driver and the female mechanic. None. They can just be friends. And he can like help her
exactly
and not be an asshole.
And kind of exactly. And I don't know that I even need I don't think I really need romance. And if I was going, because just have a technical director who's a woman.
Yeah. And
it's fine. And that's the other thing. The senior driver, he doesn't have to hate just because he's sexist towards one character doesn't mean he has to be sexist towards both.
Yeah.
Because he's like, ladies are smart. Mm-hmm. They're not strong. That's him, not me. So I'm saying it's a physical job what the mechanics doing. So I'm like, it doesn't have to be like people are layered and they are complicated. Mm-hmm. We don't have to make something so one-dimensional. I mean, just keep Kate. No one sleeps with her. Not because I had an issue that they slept together, but I just don't think that's they already would know each other at this point in the movie. And if anything, they could be having a secret affair. But that just adds a whole other thing that I don't know that is important because I think the beautiful part of my movie would be the driver's relationship in relation to one another, and that is what should have been the most important
focus of it.
Yeah, that's
Not all action movies need a romance plot.
No, and even then, even if they did sort of have like a flirtatious thing with one another, and they never did anything about it until he's no longer a driver, and then at the end of the movie, he could say, like, they could go, so how about that drink, or how about this, and that's how
it's implied
that they're now going to explore a relationship now that they're actually not working together anymore, or at least he's not a driver anymore. Maybe she's still going to work for him,
or maybe she takes a job at a different team or something, and then he's like, well, now that we're not on the same team.
Yeah, and it's like that could easily be something.
Yeah.
It's because I'm like Toto Wolff and Susie Wolff have roles within that world together, and it's completely fine, and they're married and they're whatever. I mean, granted, they're not on the same team, but I'm saying they share the motorsport. They work in the same field. Yes. Yeah. And so it's just like you even had real life examples of how you could have done this and you didn't. Well, very easily could have been done.
To the point of like, you don't need romance in an action movie to make it good. Even going back to the comparison to Top Gun Maverick, there's a romance in that movie between Tom Cruise's character and like an old flame or whatever. That didn't even need to be there. Like, I don't watch the movie for that. Yeah. I watch it for his relationship with his best friend's son.
Exactly.
Like, that's what makes the movie. So like, you don't have, it doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. So it's like, but and if you're going to, that's how I would have done it. I would have had them be, they've been very close for a long time. They've never explored it because they respect their boundaries. And, let's just go ahead and lean into the crowd who was not happy that they worked together. Fine. I don't have a problem with it. I understand it could be a problem. Fair enough, right? Now that they don't, just imply it. That's it. And I think that's literally how you fix it. You just redo the whole thing, actually.
So, final ratings for the actual F1, the movie. That not how we would have fixed it. Our movie would have, the way we fixed it would have been 10 out of 10.
Oh, yeah, 10 out of 10 helmets.
Yeah. So, but for the actual F1, the movie that exists, what would be your final rating?
Are we going to do 10 out of 10 or do we want to do 5?
Out of 10.
Okay.
How many helmets out of 10?
4. 4 out of 10 helmets.
I agree.
Because I'm like, 5's too generous.
Yeah.
Because the only thing I liked about it was the music and the action scenes, which I didn't get enough of.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, 4 out of 10 helmets.
I agree. So 4 out of 10 helmets for this one. Let us know what you thought in the comments. Let us know if you saw the movie. If I want to know if you are a woman, how you felt about the portrayal of the women in this movie, if you actually saw the movie.
Yeah.
Like, did you care? Did you not care? Did you think it was overhyped in the media and on social media? Did you think it wasn't that big of a deal? I really would like to know your thoughts.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments below and let us know how many 0 out of 10 helmets you think the movie has if you saw it. Okay. Well, we will holler at you next time.
Bye.
Bye.